In this short video, I'll summarize how to factorize and then solve quadratic equations. For a more detailed description of factorization and worked examples, check out my video on factorizing quadratics, see the link in the description below. Before we continue, let's develop a clear understanding of how we solve quadratic equations. First, the equation must be in the form shown on the board, with all the terms on one side and equal to 0 on the other side. If required, adjust your equation to gather all the terms on one side. To solve a quadratic, you must first factorize it so that you have two things multiplied together to get 0. For quadratics, this will be two brackets. To solve the quadratic, we can then set each bracket to 0, one at a time, to get, typically, two solutions. The exception would be if we had one repeated bracket, in which case we would have just one solution. Looking at the quadratic on the board, we need to look for one positive and one negative number that multiply to -16 and add to 6, as the number in the quadratic is -16 and the x-term coefficient is 6. Numbers that multiply to -16 are 1 and -16, -1 and 16, 2 and -8, -2 and 8 and 4 and -4. As 8 minus 2 equals 6, the equation factorizes to x plus 8 times x minus 2. To solve the equation, we must make each of the brackets equal to 0, one at a time. So, either x plus 8 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. Solving these linear equations gives two solutions to the quadratic equation, x equals -8 and x equals 2. To help you factorize and solve different types of quadratic equations, for the remainder of the video, I will work through and find the solutions to the equations on the board. Right at the end of the video I will show you how to check your solutions. Let's start with the first example, x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Before we solve this quadratic equation, we need to factorize it. It will factorize to two brackets, x plus or minus a number, times x plus or minus another number equals 0. You need to find two numbers that multiply together to get -12, and add to -4. Numbers that multiply to -12 are 1 and -12, -1 and 12, 2 and -6, -2 and 6, 3 and -4, and -3 and 4. As 2 minus 6 is -4, the equation factorizes to x plus 2 times x minus 6 equals 0. To solve the equation, we must make each of the brackets equal to 0, one at a time. So, either x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 6 equals 0. Solving these linear equations gives two solutions to the quadratic equation, x equals -2 and x equals 6. The next example is, x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 0. Before we solve this quadratic equation, we need to factorize it. It will factorize to two brackets, x plus a number, times x plus another number equals 0. You need to find two numbers that multiply together to get 25, and add to 10. Numbers that multiply to 25 are 1 and 25 and 5 and 5. As 5 plus 5 equals 10, the equation factorizes to x plus 5, times x plus 5 equals 0. To solve the equation, we must make the repeated bracket equal to 0. So, x plus 5 equals 0. Solving this linear equation gives the solution to the quadratic equation, x equals -5. This is a special case of a repeated bracket where the quadratic equation has just one solution. Moving on to example 3. 2x squared minus 9x plus 7 equals 0. Before we solve this equation, we need to factorize it. It factorizes to two brackets, 2x minus a number, times x minus another number equals 0. You need to find two negative numbers that multiply together to get 7, where 2 times one number plus the other is -9. Negative numbers that multiply to 7 are -1 and -7, and 2 times -1 minus 7 is -9. So, the equation factorizes to 2x minus 7, times x minus 1 equals 0. To solve the equation, we must make each of the brackets equal to 0, one at a time. So, either 2x minus 7 equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0. Solving these linear equations gives two solutions to the quadratic equation. x equals 7/2, or 3.5, and x equals 1. Example 4 is more complex. 3x squared plus 11x minus 20 equals 0. Before we solve this equation, we need to factorize it. It factorizes to two brackets, 3x plus or minus a number, times x plus or minus another number equals 0. You need to find two numbers that multiply together to get minus 20, where 3 times one number plus the other is 11. Numbers that multiply to minus 20 are minus 1 and 20, 1 and minus 20, 2 and minus 10, minus 2 and 10, 4 and minus 5, minus 4 and 5. As 3 times 5 minus 4 is 11, the equation factorizes to 3x minus 4 times x plus 5 equals 0. To solve the equation, we must make each of the brackets equal to 0, one at a time. So, either 3x minus 4 equals 0, or x plus 5 equals 0. Solving these linear equations gives two solutions to the quadratic equation. X equals 4/3, or 1 1/3, and x equals minus 5. Finally, the most complex example, 6x squared plus 11x plus 3 equals 0. Before we solve this equation, we need to factorize it. It factorizes to two brackets, but this case is more complex. You need to find pairs of numbers that multiply to 6 and to 3, and that multiply together and add to 11. Numbers that multiply together to make 6 are 1 and 6, 6 and 1, 2 and 3, and 3 and 2. Numbers that multiply together to make 3 are 1 and 3, and 3 and 1. As 3 times 3 plus 2 times 1 is 11, the equation factorizes to 3x plus 1 times 2x plus 3 equals 0. To solve the equation, we must make each of the brackets equal to 0, one at a time. So, either 3x plus 1 equals 0, or 2x plus 3 equals 0. Solving these linear equations gives two solutions to the quadratic equation. X equals minus 1/3, and x equals minus 3/2, or minus 1.5. Well done. You should now be able to factorize and solve quadratic equations. To show you how to check your answers, let's return to example 1, x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. This factorized to x plus 2 times x minus 6, giving us two solutions, x equals minus 2 and x equals 6. To check these solutions, take each one and substitute it into the equation to make sure that the result is 0. When x equals minus 2, substituting into the equation gives minus 2 squared, minus 4 times minus 2 minus 12, which is 4 plus 8 minus 12, which equals 0. Hence, x equals minus 2 is a solution of the equation. When x equals 6, substituting into the equation gives 6 squared, minus 4 times 6, minus 12, which is 36, minus 24, minus 12, which equals 0. Hence, x equals 6 is a solution of the equation. It's always a good idea to check that your solutions satisfy the original quadratic equation, to make sure that you haven't made any mistakes while factorizing or solving. You will find that exam questions will combine topics and you will be expected to form a quadratic equation and solve it, from for example, a geometry or ratio problem. My next video, entitled Solving Quadratic Equations, Worked Examples, will show you how to tackle questions like these, so please subscribe to my channel if you'd like me to show you how to do this.